This lesson, we're talking about speed and what that all entails. With this speed, I would encourage you to go ahead and look at some of the movements that we talk about in this lesson. It's a little bit easier when I was able to lead you through the hands-on portion itself, but really, do some research, look at the hands-on movements, see if you can try some of these. All you really need is about 10 yards of space, maybe up to 20. So speed is defined as being the skills and abilities needed to achieve high movement velocities. This involves the ability to accelerate and reach maximal velocity. So how quickly can we start and get off into that maximal velocity? And then also, what is that maximal velocity? How can we improve that maximal velocity? So what is being fast? Being fast, in order to be fast, I should say, we must be able to apply force. So this is the product of mass and acceleration. So we need to be able to apply that force, accelerate ourselves forward. This has a lot to do with the rate of force development. The rate of force development is the development of maximal force in minimal time. So it's a combination of strength and speed. So it's how much force can we put into the ground and how quickly can we do so. This tells us a lot about speed, as well as things like vertical jump and other aspects of athleticism, standing broad jump, and so on. And the higher the acceleration often depends on the application of force at a greater rate. So we can be really, really fast if we can improve not only how fast we're putting force into the ground, but also how much force we're putting into the ground. And that's where like weight training and stuff comes in. Another term just to look at is impulse. We don't really bring that up a lot, but I just wanted to put it in there. That's the product of generated force and the time required for its production. So the impulse is just each part of that rate of force development. Sprinting is defined as being a rapid, unpaced, maximal effort running for 15 seconds or less. Anything beyond that 15 seconds, and all of a sudden it's going to turn into a little bit different energy system. It's going to turn into a little bit different um, type of workout, I should say. So it's no longer sprinting. So it's very short, very explosive, very fast. This always comes back to that relationship of stride length and stride frequency. So when we look at sprinting and what makes people fast, we are looking particularly at how long those strides are, or the proper stride length for the individual, and how quickly are they getting those strides in. So an increase in speed often comes from an increase of stride length, frequency, and or both. When it comes to people like Usain Bolt, for instance, Usain Bolt is about 6'4", 6'5", so he's going to have pretty long stride lengths, but also his turnover and how quickly he can get that stride frequency and how frequent he can stride out is what made him the fastest man in the world for a very, very long time. So how do we increase these? So things like stride lengths, things like stride frequency, or both. One, we can resistance train. We talked about that rate of force development. It's how much force you can put into the ground, how quickly. When we talk about that force being put into the ground, that's going to come from our resistance training. So it's going to come from us increasing the amount of force we can put into the ground through things like squats, split squats, deadlifts, things like that. Proper mechanics is another one. So that's going to be arm action, leg action, just making those two come back with one another. And then just another way to get faster at sprinting is just to go out and sprint. All right. I think there's one thing to be said, or something to be said about, having a goal in mind for a certain skill or ability and just going out and doing it repetitively. All right. It may not necessarily make you a better athlete, but if you want to be a better sprinter, it will make you a better sprinter. So going out and trying that. So some examples in which we can improve our ability to sprint. One is proper, appropriate warm up. We want to prep ourselves to be ready to go. So that warm up can include things as we see arm action, A skips. So an A skip series is basically breaking down the different aspects of a run and just learning how to apply force into the ground so that we can have that rate of force development be maximized. We can include sprints in this. We can do a sprint to jog to sprint. So these are gear runs. So maybe I have 30 yards of space. I start to sprint for 10 yards. Then I slow down to a jog for another 10 yards and then sprint a final 10 yards. We can also work acceleration through things called flying 20s, in which we jog for 10 yards. But during that jog, we start to build up into a sprint. By the point that we hit 10 yards, we're in a full-on sprint, and we're going to continue that sprint for 20 yards till we slow down again. really helps with acceleration, as well as giving our stride rate or length and frequency, getting that nailed down. We can also do resisted sprints. So this can be like sled pushes, sled pulls. It can be partner band sprints, as we see in this picture here. He's got a band around. He's resisting her from moving, but he's giving her just enough resistance that she can still run and get that good forward lean, but she just has that drag behind her. We can also go assisted sprints, in which we see a partner in front. So let's say now he has that band and he's in front of her, and he's going to be pulling her forward. So that way she's getting a little bit of an overspeed training. So she's her body's starting to develop a feel for what it is to be fast at a greater speed than what she is normally comfortable with. So that way we can just continue to fight for that. And then another way is something called wickets. So wickets are basically just little mini hurdles or wickets that are set up a certain distance apart from one another so that you can work on your stride length and stride frequency. This is a video that kind of gives an example as to what that looks like.
Wickets are a max velocity upright sprinting drill that I first encountered thanks to Coach Vince Anderson, who is currently at Texas A&M. One uses 6-inch banana hurdles to create an obstacle course that forces the athlete to self-organize their posture around. The athlete runs through a series of expanding mini hurdles while working on moving their limbs faster and faster as they run through, looking for nice vertical bounce and tall posture. The drill is designed to impart good frontside mechanics, improve stride frequency, as well as increasing force production and direction of striking. It helps solve such common problems as overstriding and back kick as well. Once an athlete masters the spacing, we simply increase the total spacing by an inch or so. We do this several times a year as long as a certain spacing has been stabilized by the athlete. Wickets can be done in flats, spikes, and the grass with varying run-ins and run-offs, flipped over or turned up. The use is really only limited by the coach's imagination.
So those are our wickets. As we say, you can start to increase that stride frequency and slightly increase that length over time. As we said before, that comes back to overall increase in speed. So from here, we do our hands-on portion. I encourage you to try these, to try and look up some of these movements. So just have your warm-up that you prepared. You have film for me. Have that done. Then you can do an A march for 10 yards. A skip for 10 yards, both of which are helping us understand how to put force through the ground. From there, we're going to go a skip for height. So we're getting as high as we can on our skips. So once again, that comes back to these A march, A skip series, in which we're putting force into the ground. Our skip for height, we're going to put force into the ground, causing us to get up nice and high. So that's going to be a vertical type thing. Versus a skip for distance, we're seeing how far each skip we can get. So now we're going to be a little bit more horizontal, in which we're putting force into the ground, propelling us forward. From there, we can go seated arm action. So we're just working our arms. Oftentimes I talk about our arm speed is going to determine our leg speed. So we're going to really just focus on that arm action. You sit down and you're just going to be moving your arms just like you're running. We talk about cheek to cheek. So your palm's going to be on that cheek. Bring that up here and just get as fast as you possibly can, just as if you're running. Stand up, do the same in place. From there, we can do a 5 to 10 yard sprint, 2 of those. Don't worry about the waterfall starts. That's something that's easier to be said in person. If you have a band available to you and a partner, you can social distance by keeping 6 feet away with that band and partner, working that build up, and then you can go outside and do a gear run in which you're going to be sprinting for 10. You're going to build up, or during that sprint, you're going to slow down to a jog for 10, and then you're going to sprint for another 10. So give that a go.